I'll do the intro in a second. Just gonna scratch my butt.
Happy Mario Day. I'm going to tell you something off podcast. Right, I think I'll do this in the pre-show.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you something to ruin your day.
No.
I learned about, and this isn't in theme with the podcast, so this is why I'm doing it before the podcast. I went to get my eyes checked to see if I'm good for LASIK surgery.
Okay.
And my eyes are great candidates. And then I made the mistake of Googling how they do LASIK surgery.
Oh, I know how they do it.
Do you want to know?
I know how they do it. It's not.
How do they do it? How do you think they do it?
They like scrape off a bit.
Ah, that's it. It's awful. It's not. It's like a shing, like a guillotine, and then they take a little tweezers.
Why is this off podcast material? This could definitely be on podcast material.
I think it would repulse everyone from listening to the podcast. My reaction to it has been so deadly. Like I'm like, it's financially it makes sense, hygienically it makes sense, but just sounds awful.
It's literally less gory than an actual normal surgery, and you can definitely talk about, hey, I'm going to surgery on a podcast. I've so many podcasts talk about, hey, by the way, I have surgery next week or whatever.
Well, I don't know if I'm doing it or if I'm wimping out of it, but
my mom
eyes
did LASIK, right? Yeah, I think she did. She definitely did laser eye surgery. I don't know if it was
when
LASIK.
I last gazed into her eyes longingly, I didn't notice, I'll be honest. I just noticed the kind of deep brown
brownish, bluish, greenish color
hue that was in there. There was like a couple of maybe an orange, but
honestly it sucks. I mean, dude, we have to start the podcast. But I was gonna
sorry.
I wanted to say something, but I can't just say it on podcast because it's.
Well, then we've just started, haven't we? We've just started. It starts with me saying
intro
this is
then.
Okay.
I guess.
Well, hey, who cares anymore? This is the penultimate episode. Welcome everyone.
What I was gonna say. I mean, yeah, I guess. What I was gonna say is that like it sucks that I got all like my mom's traits. So like, yes, because I have brown eyes, my mom has brown eyes. Every single trait I got from my mom, except for like, no, literally everything. It sucks. Because my dad has green eyes. I could have green eyes. My dad's like I think I got the male pattern baldness of my grandfather on my mom's side, not my dad, whose hair is pretty normal or better. He's also like a bigger guy. Like my mom's family and my mom's like skinnier and less muscular, and I'm not a muscular guy. But my dad, relative to my mom at least, is muscular.
I think you with green eyes would be like too anime.
No,
it would be too anime.
No, you don't know.
You're not allowed to be True Green 7 and have green eyes. That just feels.
It would be perfect.
It would be perfect.
Because like whenever I make a avatar in a game, let's say, Pokemon, that's the only game I play really. I always give them, I make it look like me, but with green eyes.
That's fair. Do you know what? I do that as well though, and I don't know what, I just like natural colors. I think natural colors are good.
Green is a natural color.
Yeah, that's why I do it.
Brown is natural too.
Yeah, I have brown hair.
Every color is natural.
Deep brown. You know what I mean. I like foresty colors. I like nature. I don't.
What color can you not find in nature other than like purple? Sometimes you can't.
You cannot find
like literally every color. Magenta is magenta. You can't find apparently.
I don't know why I said indigo. That's very
indigo
not true.
Yeah, you can definitely find indigo.
Where would you find indigo? Where would you go?
I mean, the sky is sometimes indigo. There's indigo in a rainbow. Some flowers are indigo. Magenta is
Sky's transparent, mate. Sky's transparent.
Magenta is actually not part of the light spectrum. It's crazy.
I've heard this.
You know why?
No.
Because the spectrum goes from red to violet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But magenta is between red and violet, but there's nothing between red and violet in light, because it's not like a circle. It's like a color wheel in a digital space. It's a spectrum, but with two binary ends, which is red and violet. And magenta would be between red and violet, but red and violet don't touch each other. Every other color is between red and violet, except for magenta.
Oh. Red and violet? Not scarlet and violet?
Technically, yes.
Oh, okay. But I understand I understood. It's interesting we were talking about the eye color of... We weren't talking about that anime characters. Because that's like a big theme of today's episode, right?
True. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about both anime tropes and just characters in general from media that Birdkeepertoby. Why did I call you Birdkeepertoby? Toby.
Because now we're ending our professional, friendly association. It's back to professional.
True.
Only.
So Birdkeeper Tobert and I have similar shows that we have watched. We'll only be talking about the characters from those shows, not just characters from other shows that I do like, but Toby has not watched, or vice versa. And it's not just like we just want in the podcast. I've always just wanted to analyze character tropes in general, and what we like in characters, what we hate in characters, which ones are successful and not. And I think this would be a perfect opportunity. So now,
I agree.
Well, yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I was going to say, I was about to pass the baton straight onto you. I was about to say, well, I think this is probably going to be a more you-led episode, or just at the beginning here, because I'm definitely don't get me wrong. I would consider myself a very media literate person, but I feel like I don't. Much like I don't recognize that I've listened to a band until you tell me, oh, that song's from that band. Oh, I do know that song. I think it's a similar thing with tropes, where until you say the trope where X happens, I'm not almost going to be able to name any tropes. And then you say it, and it's like, oh, I either love that, or I hate that, or I'm not a fan of whatever, or I'm not as. I don't think there's any tropes that I'm not a fan of. If anything's well written. But yeah, so I suspect you're going to just sort of be leading the way for the next little bit talking about tropes, no?
No, we're not talking about tropes. We're talking about anime terms.
Oh, anime terms, right.
Because
then that's totally different to what I said.
That's totally different than what you were saying. We're definitely going to talk about tropes in the character portion of the podcast.
Yes, we are. That's right.
Oh, I think Zuko is a good example of this certain trope, but you definitely know what trope that is.
I was still creasing at the idea of having eyes cut, and so I got very.
You can see.
I'm in the room now. I'm here. Let's do this. Let's talk anime terms like
anime. What does anime mean, Toby?
Animated media.
Yeah.
That's 10 points now, and then another 10 points later, just because I got it so quick.
Exactly.
I'll be keeping score.
I'm basically just going to bring up various terms that are definitely everybody in the anime community or watches at least a few anime knows these terms. But also the other terms that are online, people say a lot, even if they don't watch anime. They know some of it. Like, for example, chibi.
So chibi is like cute characters, typically with oversized heads, right?
Yeah, like a smaller, more.
They're small, and then the head is big, and then it's
exactly.
That's face.
Okay, you didn't have to do that, but
I didn't have to, but I want to. I like making that noise. Actually, I don't even know why.
Why do you like doing that? I hate doing that.
I think it's funny, but I don't know.
You've done it before. In very inappropriate situations. I don't remember.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just see it a lot on TikTok. I don't know what it means, really.
There's a lot of things you see on TikTok you don't have to recreate.
Yes, you do, and you have to film it, and you have to put it out on TikTok yourself. That's how it works. Go on.
And again, a lot of these are just Japanese terms, not necessarily in Japan. If you say a person, for example, if you say the word kawaii in Japan, they're not going to be like anime term. They're going to be like, that's a literal word we use.
It's a word, yeah. Sure.
But what's kawaii? What's kawaii? Cute. Literally just means cute. But yeah, so you'll have kawaii characters and stuff like that. All right, but then you have, again, literal Japanese words that if you watch the sub for a lot of anime, which I actually do not, I watch mostly dubs, but I still know all these words because they're very classic and in the culture. Mm-hmm. For example, nani. Nani?
Nani. I've definitely heard it, and I've heard it. I please forgive me, people. I am completely ignorant on a lot of this. So if I say anything. Gosh, if I'm going to say anything culturally insensitive, maybe this will be it. But I feel like I've heard that being said, nani. But I don't know what that's from or where. I don't know what that means.
Again, it's just a word. It's not cultural or anything. It's just a word.
All right, okay. I don't know.
You don't have to. Nobody's going to be offended if you try.
But that's the tone of voice I think about that word in, because I feel like that's how I've heard it in anime.
It's literally just what nani.
Oh. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's probably the number one word that a person who watches anime and thinks that they know Japanese would use, because it's so easy to just add it into let's say you just said a thing. You just say nani.
That makes sense.
Same thing with for example, baka. Now it has a good history. Some good. It'll be informative for you. So it's
I've definitely, again, like, it's one of the more common ones I've heard. I feel like you're going to tell me, and I'm like, oh,
like
of course
you've heard
it is.
Sassy Baka.
Right. So
in anime, when they say it, they'll be like Baka.
Is it like an offensive thing?
It's a pejorative.
Is it like you? It's like bastard.
Okay, so that's so funny. So it doesn't literally mean bastard. It's more like idiot or stupid, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. But whenever the dubs translate it, they always just use bastard, because baka is like the most general like insult you hear in anime.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And it could mean different things in like context, but it's still always stupid and idiot. But when you translate it, you're not gonna now. You idiot or stupid isn't as like lethal as the word baka in Japanese, so they need something a little bit more, which is like bastard, right? But they can't go too far. They can't say like you know, something that's actually a curse.
But it does not mean bastard in the same way that like bastard. Jon Snow is.
Exactly.
It's like
it's more. It literally means idiot, but
it's just as an insult.
But it's stronger than the word idiot, because in Japan, in America, you call someone an idiot, it's like you idiot.
It's too light.
It's too light.
You goofball.
So so that's why in anime, every single character just like whenever they insult a person, they say bastard. You bastard. Like that's it. They only say bastard. It's like the number one insult.
That makes sense.
In
that makes
dubbed
sense.
anime.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. Now you know. Baka. I mean, this is just a term. This is not a word people use. I mean, they definitely can use it. It's just not a term that. It's not like as normal as nani and baka, which literally means what and idiot. Ecchi, for example.
Is that also cute?
No.
I don't know. No, I have no idea.
So, if I were to like, if you were to Google ecchi, I guess you would get ecchi stuff. Ecchi literally just means like lewd, not completely like 18 plus, but like definitely like sexually themed. So if you made an ecchi drawing of, let's say, I don't know, pick of Tifa, for example. It's like a little. It's a little suggestive. Tifa Lockhart. That's her last name, right? Tifa from Final Fantasy.
Wait. I wouldn't know. Okay, sure.
But that's like a famous. I don't.
That's a different thing.
I don't play Final Fantasy. I don't know anything about Final Fantasy, but I know who Tifa is.
You know how you have like what an etch a sketch is. You have like an etchy sketch.
Etchy sketch. I mean, an etchy sketch would be a thing. You can make an etchy sketch.
That's a totally different toy outside of the UK.
An etchy sketch on an etch a sketch. It could mean perfect. It could, like, I've heard in subs in an actual anime, whenever someone calls something etchy, it means like perverted, right?
Okay.
But like, it's just like something that.
Okay.
It's not
sure. That makes sense.
It's not nude. It's lewd. You know.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. That's.
Ron knows about Italian politics. Toby, let's not tell Toby what that means.
Wait, it's about Italian. I have no idea. I don't understand what that means.
Fan service. You know fan service in anime?
Yeah. So it's like different to what fan service is in the West, right? Because in the West, fan service sort of means like it's like bringing back recurring characters and stuff. But I feel like fan service in this context is more like, oh, they took extra time to have the camera angled on their breasts or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
All the mainstream anime, a lot of, I'd say 80% of mainstream anime is from a certain genre called shonen anime. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
You've heard of shonen?
You've told me about this.
Shonen literally means like boy, right? It's anime made for boys between the age of, let's say, 12 and 17. Okay. Teenage boys watch these anime, but those are also the most popular. And what would fan service for teenage boys be? What you just said. So ecchi stuff is fan service, let's say.
Okay. That makes sense. Why are you asking me about these terms?
Because they're definitely adjacent to things that you consume. Like, you literally probably watched Attack on Titan this week. And
I did.
It's like, and hopefully when that's done, you continue watching more anime that you enjoy. And
yes.
So it's like, you technically will become an anime fan, but you won't know these terms. So it's better to just tell you the terms now. Yeah.
Yeah. But I could go through life not knowing, and that would be a...
but then might as well utilize the fact you don't know on a podcast.
On a podcast, I suppose that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is not an anime term, but it's definitely a genre. It's a trope in anime, harem.
Harem?
Oh, unless you don't know what a harem is.
I mean, I know what a harem is, if that's what you're talking about, but I don't know if that's the same thing in anime.
It's literally the same thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, so it's like what Salazzle has a harem.
Yeah, it's just a
Salandits.
A harem is, no, she has a reverse harem.
Oh, she has the opposite, right? Yeah, that's true. So like a group of doting, worshipping
women is a harem.
Women, okay.
Or just, a guy with a group of girls is a harem.
Got ya.
I mean, if it's just a guy with a group of girlfriends, then that's just friends. That's not a harem. I'm talking about girls specifically that worship him. But that's the thing. So it's like that's a huge trope in anime. I'm not a fan of the harem trope. It's dumb, but like because like that never happens in real life, and it shouldn't. But like that's a huge thing where it's just like a guy and his group of girls, a harem of girls.
Yeah. Okay. Gary, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can.
I guess that's technically a harem.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, otaku. You know what an otaku is?
That's
just a term you should know, regardless. Like
that's someone who, and I might be again. Apologies if I'm being ignorant on this. I think this is someone who just spends like all day inside watching anime and I picture this kind of like drinking like a ton of Mountain Dew and eating cheese and not seeing sunlight.
Yeah.
Is that sort of the rough vibe?
That's specifically an anime otaku. Otaku literally just means a person who's like obsessed with a certain fandom and like you said, like can't function outside of that, right?
Well, yeah, okay, sure. I guess so in a way, like I'm an otaku about Pokemon.
You can be, but like in Japan, if you say you're an otaku, they'll think you're like a shut-in,
a social like
pariah,
shut-in, and okay, sure. So okay.
And people like always do like they'll take a trip to Japan and be like, oh, I'm an otaku because they think it just means a weeaboo or whatever, like a weeb. Right. But like no, it means like an actual like person who can't function outside
societal
society.
Kind of shut-in. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Like a hardcore, like I mean, in America, I guess like a hardcore fan of something can just be a hardcore fan of something, but like. At least in Japan, there's a stigma of like if you're a hardcore fan of something, you're an otaku and you're only obsessed with that thing. Because again, in Japan, they don't have time to it's either work and then only obsess about one thing. Like it's like, and if you're not obsessing about one thing, you have a social life. It's either work or social life, or work and then have obsess over one thing that you do after work and then go to sleep and then work again. Because the work culture is a little too toxic there. It's like work is like 14%, like 80% of your life. All right, but all right. So you know what shonen is now? It's things any manga or anime aimed at boys. But what's the opposite? Which would be shoujo.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like I even heard that before.
Yeah, because like if you, it's also like an aesthetic too. Technically, so let's say if you want to, it would be a good word to know if you want to look at if you want to find something for a certain aesthetic, which is like Sailor Moon, for example, is shoujo.
Right. Okay. Sure. That makes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like it's not as mainstream.
Even though loads of boys like Sailor Moon, and I'm sure there's lots of women who like
90. I mean, loads of girls love shonen anime. It's just like I said, it's mainstream by now.
It's catered for a specific order.
But it's catered. Yeah, sure. But that's why it's like people are like don't like a lot of the tropes. Let's say in shonen. Because they're shonen tropes, and then they don't realize there are other genres or at least demographics of anime. If they don't like the tropes of shonen, then you can go check out other demographics of anime. Like for example, I know Berserk is not a shonen. You ever heard of Berserk?
I've heard of Berserk. Yeah, I've not seen it.
That's not aimed for teenage boys. That's for adults.
Right.
So it's like if you just don't like the tropes of shonen anime,
there are still plenty of other anime.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you don't like anime. It means that you just don't like that. You're not part of that demographic. All right. Here's a good word. Here's a good term. Tsundere.
That I've definitely not heard before.
It's definitely people online, or at least people who know online culture, know the deres, which are various different. There are a lot of different there's tropes of people in anime, and those tropes have the suffix dere in the end. So for example, there's tsundere, there's yandere, there's a lot of different deres. There's dere, which are different kinds of tropes for different people. For example, a tsundere is a character who's like cold and standoffish against a person, but actually like likes the person.
Okay.
You've definitely seen tsunderes.
I mean, I've seen that kind of trope for sure.
A lot of people, like even like people who don't watch anime, will, if there's like a person like that in just media in general, that will be called a tsundere. Like there are tsunderes. Have you ever watched Hey Arnold?
No, I actually did. I kind of almost completely missed out on it, but I know what I know who you're on about.
There's Helga, who's like Helga from Hey Arnold is a tsundere. You know,
right?
She doesn't show her love to Arnold and actually like publicly despises him, but she loves him deep down. What guys in the chat, give me some examples of like tsunderes from like Western media, because it's fun applying these to like Western media, because then you see that these tropes are just, you know, across all of humanity. They're not just Eastern, you know.
I'm trying to think of people characters I've watched like that, and I can't think.
The thing is, I hate tsunderes. I'm not a fan of tsunderes. There's a lot of them in anime. It's the most annoying trope. Because like to me, it's like if you like the person, you're not gonna act like a child. You know, like the classic. Oh, if the guy is, you know, bullying the girl, he likes her. You know, that kind of thing. It's stupid.
I adore that trope. I don't think that's stupid. Trope. I think that's.
I hate the trope if they're not like 5. If they're like 15, it's so stupid.
I don't know. I think some people are late bloomers, and I certainly think when people get older, like that can be a nice way to almost reconnect with a time when things are simpler. So I think people
by being mean to the person?
Making it way more complicated.
It's dumb. At least I've never heard.
That's people though, right?
It is people. Know. It's like obviously all of these things technically exist. There are tsunderes. Cindy from Cindy. I like Cindy from. I like it when they actually. I like it if there's a development in the relationship. If she slowly actually becomes like his number one like confidant, and like they're like best friends, and then they become lovers. I love the friends to lovers trope, and I like it when it's like a full arc where it's like enemies to lovers. Yeah, I like that. But it's like I don't like it when it's just 80% of the show is this girl just, you know, insulting and beating up the guy.
Even like
Mindy from Drake and Josh. Oh, that's so good. Have you ever watched Drake and Josh?
No, I didn't watch it growing up. I know I missed out.
This is why this is the penultimate episode.
Because I've got to go watch loads of Drake and Josh.
Because you don't watch the things I watch.
I'm going to spend the next year watching Drake and Josh to catch up. No, like I definitely appreciate tropes where antagonistic characters surprise the typically positive characters with moments of like friendship and companionship. Like there's this really I know this is not the same thing as what we're talking about specifically in the trope, but like there's this bit in The Office with where Pam's down about something and Dwight of all people is the person that ends up like they end up having this like really nice connection, and it's like I love stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
Really. Yeah.
But the thing is that Dwight doesn't love Pam, so it's like it's not a tsundere. It's just that's a nice little trope. I love it when the person who is
I think by the end they love I think by the end they love each other as friends. Like I think
but that's not what a tsundere.
But I know that's not the same trope.
Like,
yeah.
It's not the same trope. But for example, again, you haven't fully watched Parks and Rec, but Ron Swanson is not a tsundere. But I love the fact that like Ron is he's a very like serious guy, but whenever his friends are in trouble, he'll help out, and like he'll be the number one, you know, person to help, and it's so cool. I love when the serious person and the person who you think is going to be the last one to help is always the person to help, because like deep down they actually care for everybody, but they're just not the most like flamboyant about their feelings and whatever, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, then like not the opposite of tsundere, but it's another famous dere is yandere. Have you ever heard yandere, Dev?
No.
I'm not going to get into that, but yandere is a girl. It can be a guy, right? I don't know, but usually 80% of the time it's a girl. Someone who's loves a person, is obsessed with them, and actually like to a violent level. Like is like.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen that trope.
Yeah, I hate that trope too. I don't like any.
I dislike that trope. That to me is like not cool.
Well, yeah, obviously, but like.
It's so dumb that my first thought is Amy Rose from Sonic. That's so dumb. No, that's not even.
No, she's just what, lover?
No, she's obsessed and she's like literally violent, I think, as a result. I might be wrong, but I feel like...
It depends which incarnation of Amy, but like...
Yeah, I guess.
For example, Gaston can be a yandere if you think about it, I guess. Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, right. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Gwen from Ben 10, I kind of think she qualifies as a tsundere. Yes, but does she like? I guess it's like, can you apply tsundere for like love for like a family member, but like?
Oh right, because she calls Ben like a dweeb and stuff.
Yeah, but obviously she still loves him
as a family. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. We'll find out. Annie Wilkes from Misery. Ever Misery? The again, I've never consumed it, but like it's just a character I know. Whatever. Then you don't know what Misery is.
So I just got finished watching You, which is the one about like the stalker.
He's a yandere. Yeah.
So that would be considered. Okay, sure. Okay.
Unless it can be applied to a guy. I think it can. Obviously, like, because a guy can be a tsundere, right? I don't know. You guys tell me. You know what a weeaboo is. You know what a weeb is.
Yep.
Do I go into yaoi? And
I know what they mean.
We're not going to talk about yaoi.
Let's not. We all have Google.
Okay, good. I'm glad you have Google. There are a lot of other terms, but it's not like they're important to know or widely spread. So I'm not going to bring them up. Let me look at one last list. Let me find just one more list to see if there's anything that this list doesn't have. But for example, this is not like an anime term technically, but in the Japanese community, online at least, this is the term they use. It's BGM. Do you know what BGM stands for?
No, couldn't tell you.
Background music.
That's so much more straightforward than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
If I'm looking for, I mean, whenever I'm looking for soundtrack, because I'm a big soundtrack guy, I will write OST, like official soundtrack. But sometimes I will, if it's like very Japanese, and if it's like, let's say for example, the anime, the like Pokemon anime, I can write the Pokemon anime BGM. Okay. And then you'll find it instead of OST sometimes.
Right.
Just a nice hint.
This is helpful. I don't know if I haven't told you yet. We're going to Japan later this year.
What?
This is helpful.
Wait, when? What time?
For real. In August, we're gonna.
Oh, you going for the championship?
Yeah. So kind of. We're using that as an excuse to go out, and then we're gonna spend like no time there. Phoebe really wants to go. I really want to make it happen for her. It's not 100% yet, but like we're talking about it, and I want to take her. We're gonna spend some time in Tokyo, and then we're gonna take the train over, and we're gonna spend some time in Kyoto, and it's gonna be gorgeous. I'm well excited.
I mean, you're gonna have to be in. I mean, the World Championship is not in Tokyo, so like you're gonna have to.
No, it's like literally 20 minutes away. It's like a half an hour away at most. And
the question is, should I come because you're there, or this is more like a romantic trip, or like just a trip in general?
Well, no. I mean, if you want to come to the Worlds bit, like we'll be at Worlds, and whoever's going to be Worlds is going to be at Worlds. Like that's cool. We don't need to make our plans publicly, but we can.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
But yeah, I mean, like, come if you want to come. Like, if you want to go, but we're going to spend the majority of our trip, I think. Well, we'll talk about it off podcast. I think we'll work it out.
Yeah, it makes sense. Don't tell me your hotel room on podcast.
I don't have a hotel room yet. It's still only like 90%, but like I'm pretty confident I want to do this. So
how about you ruminate about some of the terms I've told you? Maybe talk to chat about the worlds and or ecchi stuff. I'll go to the bathroom for a second.
I don't want to chat with chat about that. Chat, can you explain to me in a way that won't get you demonetized? Won't get this demonetized. What does the penultimate episode mean? Are we going to cancel the podcast? So, for those of you who are listening to this podcast on demand while Ron's in the toilet, you will get to find out in the next show what exactly is going on and what's happening. But if you are listening to us live here on YouTube, then we'll talk to you at the end of the show, and we're going to give you the inside scoop right now. So, obviously, normally this would be like, hey, so this is why you should listen to the podcast live. But given that this is the penultimate episode, that I am now realizing does not make sense. So has anyone got any anime terms? And if you are listening to this on demand, I'll have a think about some anime terms. But I am thinking about going out to Japan for the Pokemon World Championships. I'd like to visit a lot of the areas that inspired the Kanto and Johto regions. It seems even the train we'll be getting is the inspiration for the Magnet Train, which is so cool. Going to the areas inspired by Goldenrod, going to the areas that inspired Saffron and Celadon, maybe even Cinnabar Island. There's a lot that I want to get to do, and if I do, I'll be sure filming a bunch of videos about it. I will ask him if he knows what a firebender is, but I suspect that's not that's barely an anime term. Visit Hokkaido. I think Hokkaido is not on our itinerary. It's too far up. Yeah. So for those of you listening on demand, chat definitely coming up with some pretty inappropriate anime terms. Hey, Ron. How's it going?
I'm not Ron.
You are Ron. You sound
the
exactly like Ron. I made the Ron assumption. Do you want to... Oh, go on.
Well, first, Japan in the summer, at least from the Kanto region and south of that, is not the best, is kind of the worst in the summer, especially August.
But we didn't decide when Worlds was.
Like, it's the worst time to go to Japan, is July, August.
Because it's too hot?
It's too hot. Also, it's not like the pretty time. Like, that would be fall or spring. That's like classic Japan aesthetic, you know?
I'm British. I'll be fine.
No.
It's always cold here.
Humid.
Heat is
it's humid.
Is it
and
humid?
Hot.
Well, I didn't choose when Worlds was. It's really that straightforward.
The other thing is, anybody in the chat, before we end this segment of the show, any more terms that I think, or you think Toby should know?
They asked me about this one. Hen.
Oh my god, this guy. OVAs.
Oh, what is an OVA? I know what an OVA is. Video. OVA. The V is video.
Yeah.
The O. No, I can't think.
Original video animation. So it's the animation or any kind of like piece of anime that is straight to like video, that is like either extra or just straight to video, doesn't really air on TV or online. I mean, nowadays any OVA can air online, so it's technically not an OVA.
One of the first videos I ever uploaded to YouTube was an AMV, or anime music video.
So that too, that's a term that you should know.
I did.
Very
I
important.
know that.
Very important.
My first one was about Sonic and Shadow. And I can't remember. Oh, and it was to Linkin Park's What
Of course it was to Linkin
I've
Park. Oh, that's a good term that you should know, because it'll help with your language. Sakuga.
No, I don't know that one.
Sakuga is the term for when... So anime is generally limited animation. If you notice, half the time when they're talking, it's just their lip flapping, nothing really happening.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Sure.
Sakuga is the opposite. That's when all the budget goes into like the best, most fluid, animation. That's the Sakuga.
Oh, cool.
Sakuga is the particular, let's say, 2 minutes of like perfect animation, praiseworthy animation.
Interesting. Okay.
So
cool.
whenever you see that, it's good to call. It's fun to call out. Oh, that's the Sakuga. That's Sakuga. It's just
got ya.
The good animation.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that I won't be able to unlearn now. Like now I know it.
Hopefully,
it's like I'll see that in.
It's good to use, because then you'll know what to refer to that part of the episode, let's say, or the scene, the Sakuga. Yeah, a lot of Pokemon, whenever it's like a good fight, or it's like an important fight, let's say Ash versus Leon, the penultimate moment, the climax, it's Sakuga. Do
you want to talk about Attack on Titan at all, or should we move straight onto the
I didn't watch the episode. I'm waiting for the dub, like an idiot.
Oh, of course. Yeah, wow.
Already spoiled a bit.
No!
It's really dumb. And it's by people like normal people that I know, and on Twitter, they're not putting hashtags, because I banned the hashtag, like I muted the hashtags for a lot of these things. People, like, let's say, like, people we know and that we respect are just like, just saying a spoiler and not putting hashtags, not even saying anything. They're not even saying the term like Attack on Titan or anything that could be like muted. They're just like,
This is why I had to switch over from the dub, because I couldn't allow this to happen. This is I could not allow this to happen.
It's really dumb.
It's gutting. Okay. Well, are we gonna generate a Pokemon and then work out a way to weave that into our other topic for the day?
I guess.
All right. You go ahead and generate our penultimate Pokemon.
Why? Why is this our penultimate Pokemon? It's good. I like this Pokemon a lot, but it's like, it's not like anything special in terms of penultimate. It doesn't tie with the word. It's technically the penultimate Pokemon in its line. It's a middle stage, so it could work.
We could re-roll if you really want.
I'll re-roll, but then you get to choose between the two.
All right. Okay.
Every 10 episodes we get to re-roll. We have not submitted our.
Yeah.
latest.
We haven't done that in a while. And also, what we can do is with the two is whichever one I choose, the other one we are not allowed to talk about ever again on this podcast. Never, ever again. It's done. It's donezo.
Dude, nah. This is the previous one was better.
Okay, what you got for me?
We got Celio, and then we got Frillish. But like Celio is technically the penultimate Pokemon. Frillish is also the penultimate too. But like Celio feels more penultimate-y.
So we're never talking about Celio again. Let's talk about Frillish.
Oh, you want Frillish?
Well, I'm going to do that just because you wanted the other one.
Okay, we'll talk about Frillish.
I really like Frillish. I think Frillish is amazing.
Here's the thing you guys got to know. After 42 episodes, I kind of like most Pokemon. Kind of like 99% of Pokemon. So I don't have to like I kind of like every Pokemon that we generate and would like to talk about anything. But I like
Frillish.
Frillish is more.
Frillish was the core of a Pokemon theory that I did back at the beginning of 2020. It was like the first video out was like about Frillish and how it tied into Galar and stuff. And like
it did not, and you were wrong.
No, I was actually. It still holds up pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. It's up there. It's about how Frillish is like first found, and obviously Jellicent has a big presence around where the Abyssal Ruins are. Yeah. And inside the Abyssal Ruins, there's the Relic Crown, which is like Zacian's crown. And Frillish can be found all around the Watchtower that's in the Wild area. And Frillish's attire is like high nobility, and in some cases, I guess like British nobility attire. And so it's like, oh, this is how the Kingdom of Unova, what it once was, this could be like a tie-in to how the roots came from the Galar region, which does line up because the Galar story is about obviously two sort of friends who become like kings at some point, and then sure enough, in Unova, you've got like the two hero kings, or heroes of the Unova region, and there's the two castles on either end of the region. So like, there's little tie-ins and stuff, and Frillish was like my little piece of evidence that I liked the most in that stitched it all together for me. The lost souls of what was once the Abyssal Ruin became Frillish.
Fun fact by Dead Bedspread, the only water ghost Pokemon both have notable gender differences, the Frillish line and Basculegion. With water ghost.
Water ghost is a really nice combination as well.
Yeah, it's very natural too.
I really like that. Yeah.
Things die in the ocean.
Jellicent has long been one of my favorite Pokemon. Literally since the beginning of the channel, I've been bigging up at how much I like Frillish, and I've got like a competitive Frillish, and not Frillish, Jellicent. And I like both of the gender variants pretty equally for different reasons. You got like Big Kirby or Big Pringles Man.
Big Pringles Man. Guys have Pringles in the UK?
Yeah, they have Pringles in the... Yeah. They have Pringles in... Yeah, of course they do.
You were completely baffled by that.
I was going to ask you, but then I was like, you not have... in New York, but I assume you have Pringles.
I think Pringles is American. I believe so, hopefully.
Okay.
Because when there's a war between UK, at least we keep the Pringles.
Whoa. I don't agree to that.
Pringles is American, very much so. And then it was introduced in the United Kingdom more than 2 decades after. So you got it later than me.
What year?
1991.
Whoa! 1991?
In the UK, at least.
Oh, that's so wild. Pringles only came to the UK 3 years before I was born. That is wild to me. That seems wrong. That's too soon. 91? Like, Pringles just haven't always been a fact of the universe. That's weird.
This guy.
That's so... No, I don't like that at all. You're telling me that Pringles are, in the UK at least, are barely as old as Toy Story. I don't vibe with that.
Nah, it's older than Toy Story.
Only by 3 years in the UK.
So it's a big chunk of the percentage. The 90s wasn't that long. Actually, the 90s were pretty long ago. It sucks. You always think of the 90s like 10 years ago or something, but it's like 30.
No, it happened.
What the hell's going on?
So, 1991? When I was in school, you would get like these little Pringles. I don't know how to describe them. Like, they're like little pots for Pringles, but they're not like Pringle pots. They're like little horseshoe shaped containers that were about the size of that could fit in your hand.
I love those.
And you stack them up and they were all different colors. Like in the 90s, they were different colors or different glitter colors. Are they?
Yeah.
Do they still do them? Like, they were so cool. You just like fill it up and you put it in your lunchbox. You get like a little stack of Pringles. Legit.
And brands in general still color code their flavors.
It wasn't flavor. It wasn't to do with the flavors. Like the little pots, the plastic pots that you.
For me, it was
Pringles
at least in America. Like the green was the sour cream and onion. The red was normal.
What, the little plastic?
Yeah.
Horseshoe-shaped pots. Oh no,
wait, the ones that you buy. Wait, you're talking about like a separate one that you buy, or the ones that comes with the packaging?
No, I'm talking about a separate thing altogether.
Oh, so, I'm talking about like the packaging was like that.
Yeah, obviously the packaging's like no, but the packaging is a long tube, right? I'm talking about.
Yeah, but they had the mini ones. They had the mini ones.
What?
They had the ones that you put in the lunchbox that come like that, at least in America.
Oh, maybe they did come with the thing. I don't know. I just knew them as like separate. Separate.
No, I'm reading the chat.
I saw the same. Nothing is the answer. Right. Huh? No, because you could get like little glittery ones.
Glittery ones.
Yeah, you get glittery ones. It was like gel. You know, like. Did you guys have in America the same thing with like gel pens in school where you could get like you got like it was like the
early
same
2000s
fad.
was very neon-y and glittery, and that I loved.
It was the same thing with those.
Love that.
It's like that is what freedom is about. Is glittery Pringles pots.
Well, to be fair, yeah, freedom was a big deal in the early 2000s.
I suppose.
Not anymore.
How are we? We don't care anymore. How are we? Hang on. So we're going to talk about characters.
I think
freedom.
A lot of characters do. They're pretty free.
Eren Yeager likes freedom.
Yeah. Eren Yeager.
Or Yeren Yeager, as he's not called.
So, we have a list. Did we write down the characters? The list of the shows?
No, we got a list of shows. I was going to wing it with the characters.
No, not characters. We don't have a list of characters. Like I said, we're just going to talk about every character, at least that's relevant and that we want to talk about from all the shows that we've watched. But, didn't we make a list of the shows that we watched?
Yeah, we made a list of shows.
Where is it?
Was
it in the Discord or was it in like a...
In the Discord, I assume.
So let me look at that for a second. And you also got the stuff to record for the award show. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got that off of you. I was gonna like find someone on Fiverr to sort of like just do that, and then I
wouldn't mind if you paid someone more famous than you to record instead of you.
I was gonna specifically choose someone less famous than me, which is really hard because it turns out like no one's less famous than me. Even the people on Fiverr have more reviews. So. Actually, blimey, how far are we having to scroll up here?
No,
I cannot find.
Right before March 3rd is when we did that. We wrote down in our Discord the shows that we both watched together.
I don't think we did.
So, for example,
oh yeah,
here are the shows that we will or franchises and pieces of media that I think both Toby and I have consumed and are passionate about that we will be talking about today, and the characters that those shows and pieces of media house. So. Avatar and Korra, Marvel, the Song of Ice and Fire world. You wrote Breaking Bad, but I mean, I only watched like the first 3 seasons, but we can talk about Breaking Bad if you want.
We should talk about. You can talk about some characters.
The Boys, Invincible. I mean, you don't need to talk about Invincible too much.
No, some of these might be very short.
Yeah,
it might just be one.
Some of them are going to be really short. The Good Place, The Last of Us, and The Office.
The Office.
I wish that Toby finished the Parks and Rec, because I think Parks and Rec characters are more better than the Office characters. Just gonna put that out there. That's my unpopular opinion.
One day I will.
We'll start with Avatar and Korra. I think
Avatar. We can start talking about characters that we find particularly
good or bad.
Do we really like?
Any ones that we just have any commentary on, basically. Or the ones that the chat brings up from those franchises.
I can think of a specific character that I enjoy that I think might not be on the top of everyone's list, which is Tenzin in
I don't think anybody
Korra.
hates Tenzin. So
nobody hates Tenzin,
it's
but
not on the
I
top
think
of the list, I guess, yeah.
I think Tenzin is a very underrated character.
Yeah, one of the most three-dimensional characters in the series. He just feels like a normal guy, like a real guy.
Really complicated. I read this book, and I think I showed you it at some point. Did I even give them to you to borrow or something, maybe?
I read them in your house.
You read them in my house, and one of them was like, it's like, is it? I think it's Tenzin writing back to
wasn't it Aang writing to Tenzin?
Or maybe it was Aang writing to Tenzin, and it really filled in some additional kind of plot stuff. But you really feel with Tenzin, his dad, you know, and he's an old man by the time the story starts in Korra, but like his dad is the guy who saved the world, and now Tenzin is responsible as the youngest sibling. Youngest? Or,
yeah,
he's the youngest, right? As the youngest sibling and the only person as an airbender of feels the responsibility of bringing back an entire culture. And I think as a starting point for any character, that's like really interesting. That's like such a immediate stakes, and you can guess where this character might be coming from in their interactions. And so yes, he's like an old stickler teacher, but like the reasons for that are so embedded and obvious. It's sorry, go on.
It's a really realistic example of generational trauma. A lot of people think the generational trauma is usually just like a parent is abused and then they abuse their kid. But like a good example would be like the pressure of the parent. Let's say for Aang did have even bigger pressure to restore the Air Nation and to and the trauma that he endured, which is like that his entire culture is dead, and he and all the pressure that comes from that. He unfortunately put that on his son, even though Aang wasn't an abusive father or anything. It just so happened that Aang, because he was traumatized, it did transfer to his son.
It felt like an opportunity for the future to give something that he loved into the world. And so, but unfortunately, that kind of made him a bad dad in some ways. There's a lot of pressure to put on a child,
Yeah, it came from a noble position and an understandable perspective from him. But yeah, sometimes bad things can come from
If you
good.
were Tenzin's therapist, like it would be fascinating. And I think he is a character, he's short with Korra, and he's short even with his wife, and he's short with people, and it's not because he doesn't like them, or like he's just like an antisocial person or whatever, but understanding his flawed character is understanding the weight that's on his shoulders and the genuine grief I think he experiences when other people start airbending and they're like, okay, that's fine, but like it doesn't mean to us what it means to you, but now we've got it. I think there's a level, there's a real just incredible journey that character has to go on. And I mean obviously you've got J.K. Simmons, it's J.K. Simmons, isn't it? Voicing it. Simmons. You got fantastic vocal performances, whatever. But I really rate this character, and I do not think I specifically with these discussions want to focus on characters where I think that they might not come up.
We're not going to talk about Zuko because we've talked. Everybody knows anything about Zuko. Yeah, Zuko is one of the best, top 5 in all of media examples of redemption arc. There's a billion essays on them. Go watch those if you want to know why Zuko is awesome. And Zuko's technically not my favorite character. Iroh is my favorite Avatar character.
Yes.
But again, even then, everybody Iroh's literally the most likable character in that show. I don't have to explain why I like but I do like the fact that he isn't just a good guy. His backstory and his history. He was literally a conqueror. He was literally a general who probably killed at least 100,000 people. But and you forget that. But I like that nuance. I mean, for example, we'll talk about Fullmetal Alchemist perhaps for a little second. But you have a lot of these characters who are literally part of a genocide, but they're the good guys. And it's not that's a trope I need to see more of. But when it's done well, it's done well. And I like when it's done well. But let's go back to Korra, for example. Even though Lin is super cool and I love Lin, I'm a big fan of Suyin, her sister.
Yes, I see. Yes,
she's my favorite Korra character. I think it doesn't. I'm not saying that needs to be your favorite character or anything. But
but I get. Because you're again, this is a character that I don't think I would have immediately even thought about.
Exactly.
It took me a second. Which one's Suyin? Oh, right, yeah, and no, but you think about that character, you've got a fearsome mother bear, who cares about her kids, but is also again similar pressures to Tenzin. Her mother is this, esteemed, incredible person, but. The difference is unlike with Tenzin, who was the only airbender in that family, Su Lin and Lin feel that's her name, isn't it? Lin Beifong.
Lin and Sue, yeah.
Yeah. Lin and Sue feel very at competition with each other growing up in different ways.
And it was kind of the opposite. Like their mother didn't put pressure on them to be anything.
Yeah.
And then because of that, they went on separate paths. Like Sue, because there was no pressure to do anything, her mother let her do anything, was a pretty wild child. And then Lin was trying to get the affection of her mother and like was a very like kissed up to her mother and try to follow in her path in order to get some love from her mother, who obviously showed love but didn't show any like, didn't dote on her, didn't like.
It's like Lin wanted to aspire to be like the stories of her mum, and Sue did not want to aspire to be like anything necessarily to do with her mum, and ended up being exactly like her mum.
Exactly,
it's a weird kind of way. It's a really beautiful, and these complicated family dynamics are really fun to. It's interesting to say fun to watch. I think when they're well written, it does what it does what any characters do, right? Which is reflect us back on ourselves, and you can find things and traits in these characters where you go, I relate with that a little bit, or maybe I relate with this bit or that bit or whatever, and like they feel real. Those dynamics feel very real, and that's what the whole Avatar series does really well. A lot of the shows we're going to talk about do well.
Yeah.
Is that they, even whether they're set in a world of like element bending or dragons or whatever, the people and their dynamics, their relationships, their what is it? George R. R. Martin says the human heart at conflict with each other, with itself, is full on display, and it's what makes characters really engaging to watch, I think.
And this has nothing to do with characters, but I think the best fight in Korra, or at least the most underrated one, the one that I always constantly check, is Sue versus Kuvira. Do you remember that like metal bending fight when they're attacking
on the train?
It was like on it was technically on it was on the rail, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Well, go back, one of the best, like everybody who like in the comment section is like, wow, this is the most underrated fight, like nobody's talking about this is the best fight ever. It's like one of the best choreographed, one of the coolest like, showcase of bending and metal bending and anything. It's just a 10 out of 10 animation and just choreography, really good.
I saw in the chat someone said Zahir or Amon, and again, like, we don't not have to talk about characters that are already generally popular.
True.
I love these characters too.
I like Zahir and Amon a lot.
Fantastic.
I think Amon was perfect villain.
Yeah, I agree. I heard someone, I don't know.
I think both of them.
I don't know who I was talking to. Someone was just talking about how they didn't like Amon, and I'm like, no, I really think
I've watched so many reactions of the first season, and even regardless of what their opinion of the season or the writing in general is, everybody's like, Amon, this is an intimidating and interesting villain. I don't know, like maybe they didn't like the resolution to his arc, even though the resolution was technically amazing, like how his demise was pretty like mature. But I think that people just project the ending of an arc and just say, now I hate that everything about the character, even though that shouldn't be how you view a character. I think.
Oh, I agree.
For like literally 11 episodes straight, he was literally one of the coolest villains in the entire. He was the coolest villain at the time in the entire franchise. Like
I agree.
He's cooler than the Fire Lord. The Fire Lord is like he's a great foil to Aang, but Amon was a perfect foil to Korra, and Zahir was also a perfect foil to Korra, and that's why. Yeah. It's the villain is as good as the hero and vice versa. So it's like, it's not about them just being. How powerful he is compared to the Fire Lord. That's not who cares who's more powerful. It's how they make the hero
Zahir is really fantastic because spirituality is something that Korra specifically struggles with. And here's this villain who is very monk-like, reminds us of Aang, has been granted this gift of being able to bend the elements and bend air, and his philosophies come from, in many cases, the gurus and air nomads that he studied. Yeah. And I think that's what makes him such an interesting threat, is that he represents an almost altered version of Aang for Korra to face. He's more in touch with the spirits and spirituality than she is, and that is what makes him a specifically good villain for her. I would be interested to see a scenario in which a young Aang was also up against Zahir, and how that would Because that could have also like actually been a really interesting story. Now I'm thinking about that, the idea that like he bumps into this monk years later and it's like a Zahir type character, that would have been really interesting. But
the point is that all of Korra's villain make her confront her weaknesses, which is, for example, her lack in spirituality, her lack of being political, while Aang is the opposite. Like, he was very political and very spiritual, so like the same villains would not work with Aang and it would not be interesting. Korra had to, like, that's the whole thing. Aang had to confront literally a person who wouldn't be able to
reason with. Yeah.
And that's why the Fire Lord, while on his own, isn't as interesting, but as a foil to Aang was perfect.
Do you want to talk about Iroh at all, quickly, or are you good?
I think, again, if there's a billion essays about a character, I don't need to speak about the character. True. It's exactly what the essays are talking about. The only other characters, again, like, I really do like Asami a lot. Asami isn't as important to the story, but I like, for example, one thing that was really endearing about her was the fact that, and this is just the writing, it's not like she's a real person, but the writers made her not hate Korra for what, like, Mako did. Like, the Mako stuff was not well handled, but how Asami handled the Mako stuff was very well handled. She wasn't vindictive. She still liked Korra throughout the entire, first few seasons, even though, like, she was with Mako or, with her former boyfriend. It's like, it was cool. It was like, that's how she's a very mature character, and like, I like how they didn't just give her an episode of 2 of them fighting, which would have been so dumb.
No, I agree. It would have been surface and wouldn't have felt right. Anyway, and
just in general, I love the character that can hold up with the other benders. Just like Sokka. I think she's a good. She's not comic relief. So people always say like, Bolin is the Korra's Sokka. Bolin is Sokka.
He does feel that, but he also comes into his own at the end, I think.
Yeah, so I think later in the show in Avatar, Sokka's more like the idea guy, the non-bender who compensates with being the strategist. I think Asami is a good foil, is a good version of that. So Asami, I think, is the successor to Sokka, and I think a good one.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Okay.
That's it, really.
Are there any characters in Marvel that you want to shine a spotlight on?
Marvel. So
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It's crazy how, like, before Phase 3, I believe, before Phase 3, people are like, it's just these action movies, and nobody watches it for the characters. But then I think once the rift between Iron Man and Captain America started, and we see their 2 perspectives, and the perspectives are basically the opposite of where they started, and it's based on their experiences as a hero and like all the things ways they failed, their perspectives shifted from their original perspectives, and it made them such deep characters. And I think because of that, I think Captain America, like the ideological conflict between Captain America and Iron Man was the heart of why the phases. Let's say Phase 3. I think Phase 3 was so good.
Yeah.
Was Infinity War Phase 3 or 4?
3.
Yeah. So that's the reason. It's this ideological conflict made it that I was watching these movies because of the characters, not because of the action. Again, I've said it before. Whenever it's action in any movie, I'm zoning out a bit. Like, unless it's like powers, which I love.
I get that.
Or really good choreography. But if it's just a car chase or like, I don't care. Even if it's in a good movie. Whenever people say, people watch Marvel movies for the action, I always didn't feel that like I belonged in that statement, because like I'm watching it for the characters, specifically for Iron Man and Captain America, at least in the big Avengers.
Agreed completely. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page as that. Don't get me wrong. I understand why people feel that way on the surface. If you've not watched more than one, it might very much feel like shooty bang bang, pow pow, lasers, and I get that. And there are some villains that, like, unfortunately are like, the villains especially is where Marvel hit a lot of problems in like the obviously, I mean, I'm taking literally the extreme, but like the Dark Elf Christopher Eccleston in
it is the extreme
Dark World, that is the extreme. But and I think there's a lot of characters that can kind of come across that way, but there are still gems to be found both on the hero side and on the villain side and the in between. I mean, Tony Stark's journey has always been fun to watch, but again, like, there are so many essays about that. I don't know if I could find an underrated character, but certainly...
Well, villains. There can be a lot of underrated villains. For example, I just watched the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. yesterday.
Oh yeah. How do you find it?
It's not as good as the first Black Panther, but I still really liked Namor. I really
I
liked
preferred
Namor.
it actually, oddly enough. But yeah,
Yeah,
I like Namor as well.
I definitely love the interpretation. In the comics, he's just Aquaman, Marvel Aquaman, right?
Right.
Maybe
Okay.
angrier and more like mystical, but like, but I really loved the Mayan version of this. I loved how they tied it into like Mayan culture and made him like a Mayan god. Basically, it was really well done. His motivations make sense. He's also like visually and like his powers and also just like design wise, he's so cool. Again, he's not even close to my favorite villain, but like. That's just the most recent one that I watched, and I think they did a good job with him, and I just like characters like that. But let me think.
Yeah, I thought so, especially for me. It's the Vulture in.
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Keaton's
I do
Vulture
love.
is,
That's
and
really
I know that that's not like a hot take. Like, yeah, people like this character, but like the conversation in the car is one of the best scenes in all of Marvel.
Oh yeah.
Like if we're not talking from a spectacle standpoint, if we're just talking about dialogue, tension. Stakes, you're gonna go out, you're gonna go in there, Peter, you're gonna show my daughter a good time, not too good a time, and we're gonna forget this ever happened, right? And he's got the gun. Absolutely, and Peter is not in his spider suit. He's confined. He's trapped into this conversation. He's trapped into this situation. And then, obviously, Peter coming out of the car and then going into prom and going, I'm sorry, I've got to go, because he's got to go be Spider-Man now. Is such a good, from the moment he knocks on her door and he answers, and all the seeds have been set up, and he as a villain is understandable. I think the biggest criticism you can give about his villain, though, as a villain, is that he shares the same villain origin story with like half a dozen other MCU villains, which is Tony Stark annoyed him somehow. So like
his was the most like successful, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I like Mysterio's too. I thought Mysterio.
He was good, but he wasn't as deep as like the Vulture, for
because
example.
he's just kind of a nut job. He's just like
I loved him. I was very entertaining, and as a
yeah.
interpretation of the Mysterio from the comics, it was really cool. Like visually, he looked perfect. Like that was Mysterio straight from the comics. It was so cool visually. But like I think Thanos is not underrated. Everybody talk about Thanos. I think Thanos really is my favorite like villain. I just really loved the motion capture, and I loved the nuances of his face and his ideology. I really did like it a lot. Killmonger, everybody likes Killmonger. Killmonger's cool. I didn't like. He's just not my favorite one. But like,
no, sure.
And for example, this is not my favorite one, but one of the coolest I think visually was in Shang-Chi, his dad.
Oh yeah.
I think the 10 rings were the coolest things ever. Visually, just whenever he uses the 10 rings like as the power, so cool, and his motivations make sense. So like I like it. I actually like that as a villain.
I might have said this on the podcast before. I don't know. I feel like if you wrote Shang-Chi out of the movie and just made the movie about his sister on the exact same journey, it would be like a better film.
Really?
I'm not gonna lie. And that's not because I don't like Shang-Chi, the human, the character, or the actor or anything. It's just the way it's written is that he's just a bit of a passive character throughout most of the story, and she's kind of the driving force. And I'm like, oh, you could totally get rid of Shang-Chi. Just make this about her and her relationship to her dad, and I would be like, I think I would have enjoyed it more because I thought that they were like very motivating. But that's just like a weird side take that I've got. I don't know if anyone else is on board with that.
But I would agree. I think really, now look at the Vulture really was, I think, the most successful antagonist. Other than like Thanos and like because just that's grander.
I mean, obviously you could talk about Loki, I suppose.
Okay,
throughout his iteration,
but Loki is like
he's had so much opportunity to change and grow and be seen in different forms.
Yeah, for one movie, just like single movie, Vulture was the best.
Yeah.
And I was okay. And it's before we end the Marvel stuff. I don't know if was it you that didn't really care for Homecoming as much as I did, but Homecoming was one of my favorite Marvel movies because I've always wanted to see.
I liked Homecoming.
Oh, so then it wasn't you. Someone, maybe it was Alex, honestly. But Homecoming, I think I wanted to see more like that. Just like I love coming of age movies. So like teenage superheroes is my favorite thing. And they just did it perfect. They did exactly how I wanted to. I wanted to see a whole series of just that,
Me too, actually. That's kind of what I was down for, and I'm hoping.
Sorry, it's all what that's basically what all the animated series are. There's a bunch of Spider animated series, but I think this one I liked it a bit better for some reason.
No, I'm on board. I'm there with you. Yep.
I mean, now I think of it, Into the Spider-Verse is also like. That's all the Spider-Man stories. Just him being a teenager and like dealing with that, but like, but which is, I guess, that's why Spider-Man is one of the most successful heroes of all time. Anything in the chat that people have been saying other than what we said? Not really. All right, She-Hulk. She-Hulk, I'm going to mention for a second. I am one of the people who likes She-Hulk more than the average person. I watched the show.
Series, the character.
The series, and I mean, yeah, I was fine with the character too. I actually really liked, I enjoyed She-Hulk, and I think it's overhated. I understand, like, it doesn't have like a plot, but like it's still entertaining. Like, it was more entertaining than ones that did have a plot. Like, for example, I just could not get into, what's it called? Moon Knight, even though I would, like, that's totally my thing, Moon Knight. Like, it's like, ancient gods and like the powers, and also Oscar. I love Oscar Isaacs too. I just, even though, I just couldn't get into that. But She-Hulk was just a funny, nice little sitcom that I enjoyed.
I mean, I just think they're both
bland. They're both like 6 out of 10, but like,
yeah. Don't get me wrong. I didn't like with both Moon Knight and She-Hulk. There are always things to enjoy. There are always things in these franchises that I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's really enjoyable. I personally, I didn't watch all of She-Hulk. I really, that was the point I disengaged. But I did watch the ending. I did watch the ending of She-Hulk, and I really enjoyed that. Personally, I thought that was like a really cool thing to do. But no, Moon Knight, like, I just couldn't. Like, I really enjoyed like the first couple episodes, and then it just trailed off for me. But I kind of had that with a couple of them. Like, I really enjoyed Miss Marvel, the opening. Like, I thought when Miss Marvel started, first 2 episodes, I was like, this is gonna be a good show. And then I just found same sort of deal as like it bit it off for me. But that's just me. What about?
But that's what's so weird. It's like, why did I really enjoy the Winter Soldier one, Falcon Winter Soldier? I actually really enjoyed that. I thought that would have been like an okay movie.
Why did you enjoy it?
I don't know. Why did I prefer that over? And that's like way less cool than, let's say, a girl with bangles.
We've all got our preferences, right? I mean, like, I enjoyed the Hawkeye series, but I enjoy the Hawkeye series too.
But I'm a big fan of always forget her name.
Oh, Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah. Love Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah, everyone loves Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah,
get in line. Let's. Gosh. You've been in line for a while. I'm sorry. I'll get in line.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Arcane before you.
Yeah, that's true.
But for example, like, she was also like one of the best like coming of age movies. Edge of 17. Have you ever watched Edge of 17?
I've seen clips. We've talked about this on the podcast before.
She's there too. All right, I guess we're moving on to Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon.
How do you choose like an underrated character in that show? Because they are all fantastic. Like, I couldn't find you a bad character in the world of Ice and Fire. I will do my best to find an underrated character that I really enjoy in that show.
Yeah, originally I was gonna be like, oh, let's just talk about Tyrion, but again, that's like many people's favorite character.
No, I've got 2 that I really enjoy that I think become underrated just because of how little they're in the show overall. I think Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon and their dynamic is like the absolute beating pulse of the first season for any newcomer, but also I think that like it's so funny how it's all about like kings and kingdoms and the hand of the king, but really when you just break it down, it's just like, hey, Bezzy mate, we haven't hung in a while, and look, everyone up, they're well sneaky, can you come hang out?
True.
The wife won't be happy with... Oh, go on then. All right, I'll come up. We'll make a thing of it. We'll have a family trip. I'll bring up my daughter. Oh, we can wed our kids. Oh, that'd be fun. Okay. And like that's just like the crux. And then they just don't get on for like the whole time because it's too stressful. And I love this dynamic. I live for every scene where they're together, when they're friendly with each other, when they're shouting at each other.
It's what Game of Thrones is all about.
Yeah.
So like, when you're talking about it, it's like, yeah, you're just talking about peak Game of Thrones. You're just talking about when the Game of Thrones was perfect, you know? But first, Kayla's spitting in the chat. I think she's correct, and also her cat is named Powder. That's pretty cool.
Oh.
I think there's literally, their dynamic is perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. It's literally when the show, it's like perfect setup for the show, and I love how simple the setup of the show is. It's literally, my the hand of the king is dead. I want you to be the hand of king because you're like my best friend. Come here, and then everything goes wrong. Come to the capital, everything goes wrong.
I just love that I like that they are best friends, but they haven't like obviously hung out in a long time.
True.
And that they just like they clearly have they have a brotherly love and respect for each other, but also they just like cannot see eye to eye about any of the important stuff. And you could tell they would be much happier if they were just like, if they could, if Ned and Robert Baratheon could have just ridden off into the sunset with you know,
each other,
bit of wine and each other, they would have lived a happy life.
True.
But they couldn't, and I love that.
I think. What was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Sucks.
They were precluded from doing so.
An underrated character that I think. Do you remember Barristan Selmy?
Yeah, do I remember Barristan Selmy?
So for anyone who doesn't remember, he was the head of the Kingsguard?
He was the head of the Kingsguard. He could carve up the 7 of you like carving a cake.
You said that the voice, the timbre of your voice was really good for his voice.
Thanks. I love him.
Yeah, so it's like an old, a knight who is that old, he's that good if he lives that long. And also, he really is that good and really honorable. Like, I love when you have obviously, I love the honorable people in a medieval world. Whenever people are just, when 89% of the characters are just scumbags in one way, when you have literally Barristan Selmy, who's literally like, when has he done anything wrong? And also, he's a believable, like, he's not like a one-dimensional character. He's he's believably good. That's the coolest. And like when he changes allegiances, how he helps out, Dany, but like everything he does is believable and makes sense, and he's also really cool. I love cool, badass old guys. He's basically like an anime character. You have like the experienced old guy who is on your team. That's pretty cool. I remember what I was gonna say before. It's related to the Ned, and so that's the trope one of the tropes I love is when you have, like, when people who haven't seen each other for a long time, they come together and they insult each other and you think that they hate each other. But then they do, like, one joke, like, oh, you're fat or whatever. And it's like...
You got fat.
And then they start laughing and then...
You can talk. Oh! They just have that giggle.
I love that trope.
Yeah.
It's a good trope.
No, I agree completely. Gosh, I mean, I could go on about all of the Song of Ice and Fire characters. These
Stannis
characters
was
all...
really, like, three-dimensional. Stannis.
Yeah, even Stannis. Yeah.
Like again, we're not talking about our favorite characters. That's why it's like we're kind of like awkward about like
this is it. We're trying to choose different characters.
Because my favorite character really is Tyrion. And I mean a lot of Jon Snow. Everybody likes Jon Snow, but like I'm not gonna talk about Jon Snow now.
No, sure.
Oh, not my favorite character, but I loved we talked about the deleted scene with what's his name?
The Maester.
The Maester and Tywin.
Yeah.
So Maester, the Grand Maester, I forgot his name, but who cares?
Pycelle. Yeah.
The whole show, he's like acting dumb, but it's like there's so many hints that he's actually like a smart and like just like acting dumb, and he isn't dumb and old. And I just love that. I like when looking back.
I agree. I liked the High Sparrow. Even like these minor antagonists in the grand scheme of things. Like, the High Sparrow is like... I am still on my 20th rewatch or whatever, not convinced whether the High Sparrow was playing the Game of Thrones or if he was really as devout as he was, or like whether he was kind of half and halfing. Like, the performance is ambiguous in a really good way that I think really works for the stories. You could interpret his intentions any number of ways. Like he is really religiously convicted, or maybe like no, he is making plays in the Game of Thrones, and I could never quite decide where I sat with him, and probably never will. I think that's the sign of a really good performance. I
think the last one that I would want to talk about, and I think we both agree, Olenna Tyrell.
Yeah.
That's probably the most entertaining character.
Oh, yes.
Anytime she's on screen, something cool is being talked about.
The elders in this world, because like you say, like in this medieval world, to survive so long, you have to be hardy, and she is hardy. She is. I wouldn't want to tangle. I wouldn't want to meet Olenna Tyrell in a library or a dark alley. I don't care where it is. She would mess me up.
No, but that's the thing. It's like you want to gain her respect, because if she respects you, you're one of the coolest people in the entire world.
I wouldn't even try. Because if you try and gain her respect and you're not respectable, then she will just shut you down, and like it's so fun to watch. I also similarly, like, really enjoyed the performance of Randall Tarley, and maybe it's just like his voice.
That's random.
But no, like, he's got this deep voice that's very commanding, and you can sort of get why, like, everyone is scared of him. And I don't know, like, it's much lesser extent than Elena Tyrell, but, like, again, just another elder that I think is really, really rocks it well in that world.
Unlike, what's his name? What's the guy with the bridges?
The guy with the bridges?
The guy who's, like, I mean...
Walder Frey.
Walder Frey, yeah.
Actually, no, there is another character, and Dan will kill me if I don't talk about him, and I will talk about him because people don't talk about him enough, is Jorah freaking Mormont.
Oh, yeah. Jorah, of course. Jorah was my favorite character in, like, the Dany side of the story.
Yeah, he's brilliant. The scene where she's like, I command you to go and find a cure and don't return, is like, Jorah. One of the best scenes in the whole thing. All right.
Jorah is, again, one of the few, like... Again, apparently, he's kind of like the Iroh of the show, where, like, he's done bad thing, I think, in the past, but, like, he's now on the good side, trying to, like, to be...
Redeem himself and
redeem himself, also be the counsel of a young princess, basically. Literally, it's actually very similar to Iroh. So, yeah, I really love Jorah. What I was going to say is, we didn't talk about anybody from... Hot D, but I think we all just agree that, like, Viserys is one of the coolest characters in the franchise, and then the rest are cool too. Like, we like
very much enjoying it. I mean, I think Alicent Hightower is
very interesting,
brilliant. I think the main actress throughout all the incarnations is again brilliant. Super excited to see where that show goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on then. What's next on? Oh, there we go. There's our list. We got
Breaking Bad.
You've not seen much Breaking Bad, right?
I've watched more than half of it. I just stopped when I was 13. Because I shouldn't have watched it when I was 13. I mean, again, all the characters that people like are just the main characters and, like, the antagonists and, like, the main people, right? It's not like an underrated character. Like,
there aren't that many, like, minor characters, to be honest. Like, I mean, there are minor characters.
They're entertaining, but they're not as deep as, like, a lot of the minor characters, like, it's in Game of Thrones.
I'd say the drop-off is that there's, like, the main cast, and there's, like, the sub-main cast, and then there's, like, a huge drop-off to minor characters. A couple of recurring characters, but then there's, like, a huge... So, and obviously the one that I would, we want to talk about are really the people from the world of Better Call Saul. Which I don't know which you don't know anything about. Exactly. So I'm not even going to get into it, but, like, the way that they adapt and expand on these characters in Better Call Saul, it is a character-driven show. It's brilliant. Yeah, maybe we'll give Breaking Bad a bit of a miss and just move straight on to The Boys.
We'll do that in episode 53.
Yeah. Wait.
The Boys... that has enough seasons to talk about. What I was going to say is that The Boys, and now I realize, it's not like I memorize every character in The Boys, just at least at the top of my head. Let me look at the picture of The Boys characters. And it's not like they're as deep as Game of Thrones either, but it's like the people that you like the most. Obviously, Homelander is, I think, my favorite antagonist in any live action for the last 10 decades. Not 10 decades.
Homelander's terrifying.
10 years, 1 decade.
Homelander is cool. Genuinely scary.
I've never been more scared of an actor.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even, like, scary actor, like, bad characters in, like, let's say Game of Thrones. Like, for example, I don't know, Joffrey. I'm not scared of the actor of Joffrey, and he's a really cool guy, apparently. Or, like...
I'm quite enjoying what, for goodness sake, you'll have to forgive me in this moment, I'm blanking his name. The actor for Gustavo Fring is in this as a character. Yeah. And he is playing this character where if Homelander is, our Superman, then this is the guy that, like, runs Superman's business and is more powerful than Superman and could probably have Superman killed. And it's like, but he has no powers. And that's a trope I really enjoy as well, is like...
It's like if Lex Luthor was on the side of... If Superman was on Lex Luthor's side. But they still antagonize each other.
But, like, also, like, that trope of, like, Kingpin, I guess, from Spider-Man, where you have, like, the character who has no apparent, like, superpower, and yet they have underlings who are superpowered because they have some level of power that is something else. And in this world, that is the power to shift the reputation of these characters, which is everything to them. But, like... I really enjoy that trope.
Like, the rest of the characters, like, they're all, like, it's just they're entertaining, but it's like I'm in love with, like, I want to, I worship these characters. but even though like this is a character-driven show and I love The Boys, but I guess just maybe the plot is so good that like it's more about the plot instead of no, but it is about the characters. It's just like for example, I love what's her name, Starlight, but I'm not like this is my favorite character of all time or anything. Like Homelander really is one of my favorite antagonists of all time. I mean, I really liked Stormfront as just a fact. I love beating up Nazis, so like to see a Nazi beat up, like that was very fun. Stormfront was very entertaining. Mother's Milk, Mother's Milk, a really cool guy. I really like him a lot as a character. Do you remember?
Which one's that?
The black guy, the Billy's like best, I guess the most reliable guy on Billy's side.
Oh, him, right? Yeah, sorry. Do you know what? That's his name.
That's his nickname, Mother's Milk.
Why is that his nickname? Do we know?
In the show, yes, they brought it up. I think I don't remember what the reason was, but it was like a funny reason.
Huh. Okay. Yeah.
And maybe someone in the chat remembers why he's called Mother's Milk. But and then Frenchie, the dude. Whenever people are like, "Oh, what celebrity do I look like?" It's the actor for Frenchie, and he's like an Israeli actor that my parents know. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's like oh, it just so happens that he's also ethnically similar to you, and people just didn't realize that. So people always say that I look like him. And
I'm less fussed about. Well, I was gonna say I'm less fussed about those characters. Like the story with him,
which is funny because they're the main characters.
No, but like the last season, like it feels like he was doing his own thing with Kimiko, right?
Kimiko,
sorry.
Kimiko.
Yeah, and they kind of had their own story, and like they're cute when they're like happy, obviously, and they're nice.
I'm always on edge because I don't know if they're gonna like when is gonna be like the breaking point in their relationship, like when are they gonna like break up or whatever.
Yeah,
but like. No, it seems like they're good. And
I really like the arc that they're trying to take. It looks like A-Train on. I'm really excited to see him and Deeps. I'm the Deep.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Interested to see if they have like proper moral redemption arcs or whether they are doomed to be mini Homelanders, and it seems that they're working towards these like little redemption arcs for them.
Like again, there's a lot of nuanced characters. Like what's her name, Maeve? But it's like again, I'm not gonna be like Maeve isn't like the coolest thing ever. I'm not like wow, Maeve is one of the coolest things ever. So that it's I guess The Boys really it's weird because like I really do like The Boys, but it's like I'm not gushing over the characters like Game of Thrones or Avatar or anything.
I think that's where we're gonna get stuck with Invincible because like it's the same deal. Like the characters are all they're fine, they're all good. Obviously.
I guess it's just, they're more straightforward. It's like these are.
I was about to say All Might. That's not his name. That's the other one.
Omni-Man.
Omni-Man.
The opposite of All Might.
Yeah, Omni-Man.
Omni-Man is a really cool character. Again, one of the best villains of the decade, at least meme-wise. No, but he's a really good character. I guess the writing of the characters actually is not that perfect in Invincible. Like for example, his girlfriend was not well done. Do you remember?
You didn't think?
No, she kept on blaming him for things that he really like couldn't. That was not his fault. like I get realistically.
What do you mean?
Obviously, she wouldn't know what's going on, but it's like it was frustrating. It's not her fault, but it's frustrating because like the show almost makes you not like her because like she's.
I didn't feel that at all.
It's not like. It doesn't feel like Spider-Man whenever like Spider-Man has to like keep a secret from like or like any other like, teenage. I've seen so many teenage superheroes trying to keep a secret from their significant other, and it just was not as entertaining. It was like very like she just not as entertaining. I liked her as a character before, like, but they kept on doubling down on like how much.
But then the point was, at some point, she did work out. Oh, this is why. And then what she was really annoyed at was
she was annoyed that that's why I didn't like. I actually liked her before she found out. I liked her before she found out, but then when she found out and like she blamed him, that was. I've never seen where the girlfriend finds out about the guy being a superhero and then she hates him even more or like dislikes him because of that.
I think. What I enjoyed about that was the reality that, okay, well, just because you're a superhero, that you've still been lying to me. Like
but by now we already know like superheroes like have alternate. I get in a world where the people aren't privy to superhero tropes that they wouldn't like. Yeah, that would make sense. But it's like by now. Everybody knows that superheroes keep this specific secret, and it's like kind of understandable. So it's like it's hard to make the audience like a person who doesn't understand this trope.
I thought it was interesting, and I liked that because like none of us obviously none of us can relate or understand the experience of what it must be like to have a partner who's secretly a superhero, right? Like,
isn't that the coolest thing ever, though? Like,
and I think that's what I really enjoyed watching this dynamic where it's like, oh yeah, imagine the effect that would have if you discovered, because basically she's discovered my partner has had another life that they've not talked to me about
for normal reasons. They live in a world with they know what alter egos are.
But like, if you're actually in that relationship and your partner's been lying to you, like, I don't know, like, I found that really,
dude, she knew he was
compelling and interesting.
She already knew that he was keeping secrets, and now she found the answer to the secret, and it actually justifies the secret. It's not like she was like all fine with him and then finds out that he has a secret. She was already suspicious that he has a secret. She just found the answer to the secret. And it was an actual legit reason for not keeping secret, but at least doing the weird things that he did.
Even if that's like logically true, it doesn't change the fact that like right now she's angry, and like I get that. Like I you know, even if it's a case of like, okay, down the line she'll go, oh, I understand why. Like, that lie needed to be had. At the same time, reasons are important, and yes, he was lying to her about being invincible. Roll intro. But I think he, like, also, this was about honesty between partners, and I think that was like a big deal for her, basically. And I liked it. No, I really enjoyed the way it was handled.
But isn't that the thing with like every like complicated or any complication in a fictional relationship? It's like 60% of the time the problem is lack of communication or like lying or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And
this just was not a satisfying like way to take that for me, because like every piece of every couples in fiction, like the whole struggle is that the fact that there's an alter ego, or like the character is hiding something that is like not because like they're doing bad things, but because they're actually doing good things or whatever. Like that's a thing I've seen in so many like pieces of media. It just was not my favorite handling of that. So I understand that it was a natural response, but it's just
I liked it because it's not just in fiction that's the case, right? It's in real life that's the case.
But in real life, you communicate. You're like, okay, it's you lied, but I think you had a good reason. Like.
But I don't think that's how relationships are. I think relationships. This is really interesting. Like I think in relationships, like someone can have a good reason to withhold information or to lie to you.
This is a new relationship, by the way. Like this is not, I get it if it's like a 6 months and up, maybe even 3 months and up. But this was like a 2-month relationship with them.
I just think it's more emotional than that. I think it's like the time isn't necessarily always going to be the defining thing. Like if she's got trust issues and she's got this amazing boyfriend who's amazing like all the time.
He wasn't amazing. That was the whole thing.
He keeps disappearing.
If he was amazing and then he was keeping a secret, then maybe. But the fact is that he wasn't an amazing boyfriend, and now she found out the reason. It was actually because he was being a freaking superhero, and now this actually helps the situation now that she knows. But it didn't. That's what's so weird.
But so at what point? I guess the question is at what point is she supposed to be annoyed at him?
She was annoyed throughout. Like he kept on bailing on her, but now she knows the reason.
I know, and I think it's okay for her to go. Right. Thank you for telling me finally.
Yeah, that's not what happened.
But now, quite kindly leave because I'm hugely upset about this.
That's not what happened. She was angry at him for keeping the secret.
Well, yeah, like I think that's okay. I think that's such a much more human way of like portraying that rather than like this, because people aren't like robots, right? And like if you found out, oh my goodness, the whole reason why is because you were a superhero this whole time. You've spent months or weeks carrying around those feelings of like being lied to, realizing, understand, and like learning why. And like and now they finally decided to tell you, even though you worked it out ages ago. So they just haven't been trusting you with the truth. And they might have good reasons for that, but like, I completely get the reaction of like, you need to go.
I'm totally fine with them breaking up. That's not the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just like, I don't know, the response was a little toxic. But I don't know.
It's been a while since I watched it.
We did, yeah.
Maybe give it a rewatch at some point.
For me.
Yeah. Fair enough. I last watched it when it came out.
It's also hard when the fact that like Adam Eve was pretty nice to him and like pretty cool, and like I shipped them instead of him and and Amber. Even though I shipped him and Amber in the beginning, but it's like I don't know. Adam Eve was very nice to him, so it's like why wouldn't I ship him now with that girl? But whatever, it doesn't matter. These are fictional guys. The Good Place.
The Good Place.
There isn't a lot of characters in The Good Place though, and it's like. The characters are pretty straightforward in terms of like.
There's certainly no underrated characters, but I really enjoyed the character of Michael. I think Michael
is like this breakout in terms of like, not underrated, but like not the most nuanced, but the most unique. Because like, you see all the other characters were tropes and well done tropes, but Michael's like, it's a new, unique kind of character.
Yeah, I mean, completely. He evokes this like really warm, welcoming, fun, grandfatherly vibe.
Spoilers for The Good Place, by the way, because we are going to have to talk about something.
Yeah, I think we are. The show's over now, right? So, like, yeah, spoilers for The Good Place.
You have
if you don't
10
wanna
seconds
see this,
to leave.
You have a little bit.
Meanwhile,
he is the guy that you would want to like intro you to.
Wait, sorry, don't leave. Don't leave. We'll talk about him for literally like a minute. So like mute for a minute. We'll literally time ourselves.
He's the guy that you'd want, and then to not only see him turn out to be the villain, but then also to see him get to grow and go on this character. Because you think, how does a timeless entity grow as a character? And yet he does, and it's so nice to see. By learning about the humanity and other people, you get to watch him with the joyfulness of a child discovering the world for the first time, like discover what it means to be human. And like that is such a brilliant way to handle a timeless, angel or devil or whatever. Also,
just in general, you rarely get to see like the old very nice guy betray. Like when there was a betrayal in the end of the first season, I felt betrayed. I actually felt. I've never had. Usually betrayals is by like a sneaky guy who like a sneaky guy, like a sneaky young person.
I get what you're on about.
I've never seen like imagine Iroh ended up being the villain. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's what
completely.
I felt when the twist happened. So it's like, but then also obviously then redeems himself. So it's really cool. I really like that a lot. Yeah. So Michael really is the standout character, even though like he was my favorite character. Although maybe he was. Now that I think of it. Cool. The Last of Us, at least when we're talking about the show, there are not enough characters to talk about The Last of Us.
There's not, I mean, I could rave on forever about Bill and Frank and how well those characters were, but like, so does everyone.
What sucks? I mean? So at the end of every show that at the end of every episode that I've been watching for any show over the last like year, let's say, I go to this website. When I'm done with the episode, I go to this website called the Rating Graph. I think it's IMDb Rating Graph. So, because I want to see the reception of that episode, right? So let's say I finish a really good episode. I'm like, I want to. Did it get a high rating in IMDb or like anything else? And it shows you like a nice, neat graph of like the entire show. And it sucked because the best episodes of The Last of Us, for example, episode 3, are controversial, at least for I guess the gay relationship. Let's say, so you have a lot of review bombing, which ruins the rating. So now I don't get a like. That episode would have been a 10 out of 10 in the rating, but it was like a 7 now, right? And now I don't get to see the actual reception, at least from the IMDb rating for that episode. Same thing happened with the episode 7, the one with like Ellie's backstory.
Riley? Yeah.
And it's like that also features some gay stuff, and it's like that also was review bombed, I assume, because it was also like it was like a 6 out of 10 in terms of the rating when it's definitely not a 6 out of 10 episode.
Dumb.
So now it sucks that I can't rely on that website to see the rating because I want to see how people
are gonna.
Yeah.
No, I mean that sucks, and I think that sucks because I'm convinced that episode 3 of The Last of Us, it sounds weird to say, but it's my movie of the year. You know what I mean? Like I would recommend people if someone has said to me I'm never gonna watch The Last of Us, I'd be like, go watch episode 3 then. Just go watch episode 3 because I think it's so enjoyable in a bubble. I think it is art in every way, shape, and form. It is very phenomenal. It is so well put together.
I'm trying
to you could have had any mixture of characters in any kind of sexual romantic relationship in that. I don't care if you had 2 or 3 people, if you had 2 men, 2 women, 3 women and two men. I don't care. That, with that writing and that story, was phenomenal. It's a story about love, full stop, and it's just beautiful. And if you are convinced you will never watch The Last of Us, which you absolutely should, it's ending this week. Or the season 1 is, I guess, if they're doing a season 2.
They're 100% doing season 2.
They're definitely doing a season 2. You should watch episode 3 if you're never going to watch anything else again, because it's like my movie of the year. I think it's fantastic.
The latest episode is actually probably the second best episode of the series.
Yeah. It was, yeah. Really good.
How long did it take you to notice that Troy Baker was in that episode?
Immediately.
Okay, just making sure, because I was like, I felt like proud of myself, like, oh, that's Troy Baker in like the first second.
Yeah.
But I feel like everybody, or at least
but he was in the trailer for next time as well. So
really? I didn't watch that.
Yeah,
for that episode.
I did. So. I watched this.
That's really cool. That's really cool, actually.
It's super cool, and again, all very well, tastefully handled.
Yeah,
do you know my favorite? I'll tell you what. My favorite underrated characters in the show are the There's the married couple that are in a hut in like episode 4.
I loved them! That was so fun!
There's like this 2-minute scene where they're like kind of like the husband comes back from hunting, and then they're being held at gunpoint, and point on this map, where are we going? And the husband looks at the wife and he's like, "Did you tell him the truth?" She goes, "Yeah." He's like, "Are you telling me the truth?" She's like, she thinks for a minute. She's like, "Yeah." It's actually amazing.
Just the idea that they probably had like a relatively good life during the apocalypse is also pretty cool.
Yeah, they were really fun. Like, I would happily watch like an episode about those guys and just see what they're up to. I think that'd be wonderful. Okay, I guess the last thing for us to talk about then is the Office, and underrated characters or hidden gems in the Office. How do you?
The thing is that no character is really underrated in the Office, because like
I got one.
They get enough screen time to show us what they got. Continue.
Hang on.
I mean, I have one already, but
okay, who you got?
I think Daryl.
Oh, yeah.
More Daryl would have been nice. Daryl was fun. He was probably the most normal of the characters. I was like, my favorite characters in The Office are the normal people. So Daryl, obviously Jim is my favorite character. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the normal people.
It's interesting you say that, because one of my favorite characters is Jan. I think Jan is just like...
Jan is entertaining.
Yeah, but like that's what, don't get me wrong, like I love Jim and Pam and Dwight and all the main cast like so much, but I think Jan is just like you do not know where a scene's gonna go when Jan walks into the office, and I just love that edge. For her.
I don't know why. It's like I don't want her to like maybe I empathize too much with Steve Carell's character. How did I forget?
Michael Scott. Yeah.
Maybe I empathize too much with Michael in those situations, and I'm like, this is making Michael uncomfortable. I don't want him to be uncomfortable.
There is a point where like Michael's clearly describing being in a toxic relationship. I think it was maybe funnier, like it was maybe more comedically appropriate back when it came out, but like nowadays, I quite clearly recognize that as like, oh, that's actually really unhealthy. And at those moments, I agree. I don't enjoy as much.
I prefer the beginning of their relationship. In terms of entertainment wise, once it got like a little too toxic, it was a little like uncomfortable.
It was like, okay, yeah, I agree with that.
Dwight is very entertaining, but again, Dwight is a very famous, iconic TV character. I'm not going to talk about Dwight now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think of like
Michael Scott
side office. I mean, I really like oh gosh, what's her name? She's like one of the main cast. She's the blonde one that's very...
Angela?
Angela. I think Angela's great.
The actress of Angela is actually a really cool person. She's like a big nerd and very funny and cute.
Yeah.
Really like her.
I think her work is in that show is like definitely deserving of attention. And I like Kevin as well, but like who doesn't? No one doesn't like Kevin. Yeah. Like Kevin's, it's Kevin.
Not entertaining. But like Angela, I think one of my favorite moments in the show, I just remember laughing so much. Dwight was talking to the camera. And then he turns around and Angela's there, and he just freaks out. He's like, "What?" Like she's just standing there, like happy, because he I guess he was talking behind her back and just didn't just assumed she wasn't gonna be there. And he just looks back and she's there, just standing, like she's not doing anything. She's just standing there, being cute, like being normal.
Yeah, and he's just like freaked out by it.
He just freaked out for a second.
All about him.
And it's not even a good joke or anything. It was just like genuine. It was just genuine. It felt genuine.
Yeah.
Ryan originally I loved, but then he became like insufferable. But I guess that's the joke.
Yeah. I never liked the abusive Toby stuff, like where it was just like Michael just hating on Toby. I think that joke ran its course really quickly for me, and I think what I disliked about it is that with a number of the characters had a multitude of jokes that they would be involved in per episode, but Toby had basically two modes, which is either Michael's talking about how he hates Toby unreasonably, haha, or Toby's being really creepy to Pam.
I was going to say that, yeah.
And those are like the two jokes that character is involved with, and I think that's why I didn't enjoy the character as much, like compared to other characters who obviously a whole range of different comedic expressions, I suppose. What
was Ed Helms' character's name again? Kept on saying Big Tuna. What was his name?
Big Tuna! I don't know, but I can't remember.
So, I really, like, he became one of my favorite characters the season, like, the first season that he was, like, the season, like, right after Michael left.
Andy Bernard.
Andy. So, I guess the season right after Michael left, Andy was awesome. But then
he was good for about a bit there.
Then they flanderized him. It sucked. Like, they made him, like, one-dimensional and, like, crazy by the end of the show.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And like obsessed with like Aaron and like just weird. But I really I thought it was like peak Andy, one of the peak also characters in that show that season. And it sucked.
I liked Catherine Tate in that show. Catherine Tate was great.
Oh,
she
the
said
British
briefly
woman?
in it. Yeah.
She was
Whoa. The British woman?
The Brits.
The British woman? You talking about Dame Catherine Tate? I actually don't know if she's a dame. You talking about Her Royal Highness Catherine Tate as if she's the British woman?
She's literally the only British woman in the show.
Let me tell you about Doctor Who.
I knew you were going to bring that up. How is she really good in Doctor Who?
She is unbelievable in Doctor Who, and she's coming back for an episode, and I'm so excited. She's brilliant. Catherine Tate is like a UK treasure. She's got the Catherine Tate show. She's just like a piece of a kind of UK British comedy that just, I don't know why I said UK British. Yeah, she's a national treasure. We love her. We love our Catherine Tate.
Might as well bring this up because I mean it's literally the end of the show, and also Baguette Hero in the chat is asking the question, are the live episodes ever put up or can you only see them in the moment? Guys, for like the 17th time, the live episodes are the podcast episodes. We just record them live, and then a week or two later, those are the episodes that you hear.
This episode will be out next week, but just before this time next week, we'll be going live with the final episode of the Calm Mind podcast.
That means a lot of things. It means also it's the last episode, if you don't know what final means for some reason. It also means that right now, for the people live here, we are going to have a post show. There we will address whatever questions you had. But for the people who aren't here, you're going to have to watch the final episode either live or when it's out.
Find out for yourself.
Thank you guys for being here.
All right.
Very good episode.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You're a character, Toby.
You're a weeaboo.
Nobody says weeaboo anymore, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing, honestly. I just said it because I felt I wanted to go full circle.
You just say weeb, but even then, it's like everybody's weeb now. Everybody likes anime now. So it's like, doesn't matter.
You're an ecchi.
I hope so.